Hey, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining this Introduction to Power Automate webinar. This is, of course, the second in a series of 4 webinars. So last week, Lewis gave us a great overview of the Power Platform as a whole. And the next 3 webinars will be going a little bit deeper into each of the individual components. So today's Power Automate, on the 10th, you'll have Power Apps, 10th of May, and on the 17th, the Power BI platform. Just a reminder that you'll receive a copy of this recording this afternoon or tomorrow morning after the event. Any questions, please put them in the chat, and we will address them at the end. Lewis Williams is our Power Platforms expert. He's absolutely fantastic at what he does, because he does a lot of stuff internally for us as well to create different automations, flows, and dashboards and things like that. So we have first-hand experience of all the great stuff he does. So Lewis, over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you for that introduction, Richard. And yeah, I'd just like to say good morning to everybody and welcome to the Power Automate sort of webinar that we're hosting today. So yeah, as Richard covered, we will be looking in more detail at the Power Platform, more sort of drilling down into specifically Power Automate and some of the features that are available within Power Automate, and how you internally in your companies can pull out the value held within Power Automate to really empower yourselves to start moving on. As Richard said, if you have any questions throughout anything mentioned in the session today, please feel free to just drop them in the chat and we'll refer back to them at the end. But yeah, just keep spamming with the questions if you have any, and we'll get back to you. Okay, so what we'll do is that we will move on to the agenda just to cover off what we will be looking into today for yourselves. So first off, we'll start with an overview of Power Automate. So a basic high-level explanation of what Power Automate is, what it can do, and what sort of availability is within the resource, as well as some licensing expenses, and how yourselves within your organizations can sort of start using Power Automate. We then will move on to a Power Automate case study discussion. So this is where we will look at a published Microsoft document with a case study where Microsoft have gone in and asked some questions to a significantly large organization, and they asked them how they utilized the programs to benefit them and how it suits their needs. We will then do a small section of how Cobweb uses Power Automate to benefit our needs. So again, it's showing you the value of how we pull out our money out of Power Automate in exchange for the licensing expenses. We'll then have a Q&A if anybody has any questions, and we'll run through some training options available through Cobweb. Okay, so we will jump in to the Power Automate overview. Sorry about that. Apologies, guys. That was just a fire alarm in Cobweb, just doing a test. And so now we've gone through that, we'll start with the Power Automate overview and explanation. So Power Automate, or you may have previously known it as Microsoft Flow, allows you to develop automated workflows between Microsoft or other third-party applications. This allows staff to avoid annoying or repetitive tasks, allowing them to save valuable work time. Power Automate flows are separated into 4 key areas: automated tasks, scheduled tasks, triggered actions such as button clicks, and finally, business processes. Each of these utilize Dynamics Dataverse, but there are many third-party connectors which will allow users to connect to applications outside of the Microsoft ecosystem. Microsoft do support some third-party built-in connectors for Gmail, Google Drive, GitHub, Salesforce, Adobe Sign, and many, many more. These connectors are available as standard, as well as some being premium features within Power Automate. So Power Automate allows you to offers you a library of pre-built process flows for an out-of-the-box experience, as well as allowing custom flows to be developed. With these pre-built flows, these often allow users to create process flows through a template, so that they are easy to scope jobs and estimate development times with a certain amount of accuracy. If you know exactly what you're going to be building and you have a template for what you're going to be building, it's easier to estimate your expected sort of reach of the job and how long the job will take. So some examples of the pre-built flows are automated email savings or automated email attachments, approvals within Teams. So this is actually shown in the screenshot. So this is a Cobweb Power Automate flow that what we have developed that allows approvals within Teams, as well as automate planner task creation, and again, many more features. So Power Automate allows you to add steps into any process, allowing you to activate certain requirements before the flow has finished. For example, if an approval flow was created, Power Automate can have the requirement for this request to be approved before continuing with the remainder of the workflow. Triggers are listed as a requirement. For example, in the screenshot on the right-hand side of the slide, a trigger would be the SharePoint connector at the top, which is activated when a file is uploaded to SharePoint. So for example, this approval process flow won't be started until we have made it available for them, or a file is uploaded to SharePoint, which Power Automate will then recognize that as the trigger and will activate the flow, following the flow for all of the steps, all of the sub-steps required with that piece of data. So the reason why you would do this is that this offers this offers time-saving techniques by eliminating those processes from employee workloads and reducing the need to chase and update records manually. So for example, internally, if you have a process flow, so a email or an email gets sent to a manager to approve a certain expense by an employee, Power Automate would do that automatically. So rather than the employee having to raise the email, pull all the information, the employee would upload that information into a unified location, and Power Automate would see that that data has been uploaded and will then continue the manual process while that employee is able to do other work rather than that employee doing that manual process work. Okay, so we've explained what Power Automate is, but we haven't explained how you can get access to start using some of the amazing features within Power Automate. The simplest starting point is to purchase Power Automate per user for £11.30 per user per calendar month. You get access to all the premium Power Automate features without any restrictions. Should you want to build AI, or should you want AI Builder or additional RPI access, you can get that with the limited time offer currently available. Alternatively, you can purchase on a per flow basis. So for example, if you have Power Automate flows within your tenant, but you don't have any developers actively developing those Power Automate flows, you can purchase the standalone Power Automate license. Microsoft have also licensed for this purpose, as so for example, the Power Automate flow, you don't have to pay that. That's not £75.40 per month per flow. That is inclusive of 5 flows. So that does give you some extended capacity. Some of you may also have Power Automate licensing through a seeded license. So these often come with larger Business 365 licenses. For example, E3 and E5 and Business Premium all come with Power Automate non-premium licenses built into the package. So you will have access to Power Automate, you just won't have any of the premium features. So for example, some third-party data sources, as well as Microsoft Dynamics Dataverse, is all a premium feature. So you would need the £11.30 license in order to get those premium features. Although these features can assist based off of data storage location, so for example, the seeded licenses are going to need the additional expenses. So Power Apps will also give you access. So when within the context of a Power App, for example, the time recording application that Cobweb uses internally, so we have developed a Power App to effectively manage our engineers' logged time. So our engineers will complete their standard workday and they will complete their time recording at the end of it in order for our senior managers to cover off and understand where the employees are putting their utilization and are spending the majority of the time. This allows for accurate tracking of our projects, as well as for accurate tracking for our senior leaders, so that our senior leaders always know what our engineers are doing after the day that the engineer has completed it. So for that, because the context of Power Automate, so for example, the notifications for approvals, so for project request approvals, we have a Power Automate flow that will send an email off to the manager as well as gain approval for that. So rather than us having to have a Power Automate license built in. So rather than us paying for the Power Apps license and the Power Automate license, because we don't use any premium features within that, and because it is built solely within the context of Power Apps, that Power Automate license is included. So when you do bolt Power Apps and Power Automate together, they do become cheaper. So that is a way to assist yourself. And that, again, that comes at no extra cost due to it being in the context of the Power App. Okay, so and on the right hand side, you will see a list of some of the seeded licenses and some of the grouping of the license that has the free non-premium license held within there. Okay, so we will move on to the case study portion of the Power Automate session today. So this is where we drill in and really understand a case study. So this is a massive business, as some of you may have gathered. We're going to be covering Coca-Cola bottling company. So they actually had a use case where Power Automate was very much needed within their tenant due to them having a significantly long process. So we will now cover this off. So for today's case studies, I wanted to dive into a company that we all should have heard of, Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola has a long history of supplying soft drink products directly to retailers and restaurants. But when Coca-Cola introduced the new freestyle vending machines, Coca-Cola United, a privately owned sister company of Coca-Cola, were challenged to streamline the order and invoicing process. Discovering Power Automate assisted Coca-Cola United with this challenge. Leveraging Power Automate robotic process automation, Coca-Cola were able to advance their strategic freestyle initiative with process automation that directly matches the individuality and innovation that the freestyle product represents. So as some of you may not be familiar with the freestyle product line from Coca-Cola, it is in basic terms a vending machine which allows you to mix and match flavors to complete freedom. So you can mix Coke Zero with lemonade, Fanta, Diet Pepsi, whatever you would like. I don't know why you would do some of those combinations, but all those combinations are available, and that's one of the key selling point with the freestyle machine. So in total, for a fully stocked out freestyle machine with all your flavors or with all the flavors fully stocked, you would have over 100 options to customize your drink. So as you can understand, and as you probably some of you may already be seeing, is that if that's an independent vending machine and there's potentially 100 options, that is a significant amount of stock that needs to be imported and needs to be transported into that machine. So when you offer so much variety in a product such as this, stock becomes the key issue. So a quote from the managing director, Dr. Mr. Bob Means, Coca-Cola innovation provided with the supply chain system. So replenishing the high-tech small flavor cartridge was best done by outsourcing production, but it created a back office nightmare. So that was Bob Means, the Director of Business Solutions at Cobweb, or at Coca-Cola Bottling Company, not Cobweb, sorry, that's my mistake. So by introducing the external suppliers to the freestyle ecosystem, Coca-Cola removed the supply chain issue, but then brought into a back office nightmare. So their new ordering system would need to be completed using an 11-step process via an Excel spreadsheet that required a dedicated CRM agent to take the order and manually manage that order through the system, scanning the invoice, walking it to the accounts payable department, delivering the invoice. The supplier would then, supplier, customer, and material numbers all then had to be cross-referenced with the internal SAP system. And then the order then needed to be created in the supplier system. So as you can see, there is a significant amount of steps that need to be completed just for this machine, just this single machine to get stock replenished. So as you can see on the left-hand side screenshot held within the slide deck, you can actually see there Coca-Cola's old process. So it would go through the CRM order. It would then be tracked in Excel. It would then go to a PO, translated customer and material numbers. They would then create the order in the supplier system, check for email for delivery, check for the invoice, print everything out, carry the documents to AP. AP scans the documents and then validated the optical character recognition, release PO and the invoice. So as you can see, that is a significant timely process, which is all being held back by the need or by the necessity for this to be completed. So when you are selling millions of units, this process is not feasible. A single dedicated CRM agent could service only 50 freestyle orders, while nearly 50,000 more were waiting in the back system. So as you can see, it's just not scalable. The engineers just simply cannot keep up with their demand, and they need a solution, or they require a solution. So the solution was built by the Coca-Cola company's fusion teams of citizens developers and professional developers, as well as its partners, Happiest Minds Technology, which is an IT company. Coca-Cola United started by synchronizing the data between the company's SAP CRM system and their Azure SQL using Azure Data Factory. Happiest Minds added the automation, creating a master automated service agent they have dubbed as AZA, developed on the Microsoft Azure and on Microsoft Power Platform. AZA consists of several bots that use Azure Key Vault to help secure and control passwords and other sensitive data. Leveraging Power Platform build tools for Azure DevOps were used to coordinate work between Coca-Cola United and the Happiest Minds, allowed for cross-department building. So another quote from Bob Means is, Power Platform and Azure DevOps enabled our citizens developers, our pro developers, and our partners to build as a team, and that accelerated the entire department process. So now when a CRM agent enters an order into the CRM system, enters it into the CRM system, AZA then takes the order from there and signs it into the company's SAP system without human intervention. AZA easily accesses orders, which are now tracked in Microsoft Azure SQL database rather than in an Excel spreadsheet. AZA reads the database and creates a PO in the company's SAP system. AZA then submits the order to the supplier's web application, validates successful entry, monitors the email system for an invoice and delivery emails, matches them to the correct order, and then stores the attachment in an Azure blob storage for future reference. After that, AZA uses form processing in AI Builder to extract information from these email attachments that's necessary to close the process in the accounts payable system. And finally, it releases the invoice and PO from SAP. So these steps all occur with bots within the AZA bot running in unattended mode. So the key capability of Power Automate RPA in this situation is that it takes those mundane, tedious tasks from humans and shifts them onto bots. So rather than it's you building through this, it's a bot that's going through all these processes. With robotic process automation unattended mode, everything is fully automated. So this means that the new simplified process frees the dedicated CRM agent, allowing orders from old channels such as inbound and outbound call center agents, field service sales representatives at customer sites, and via a customer self-service portal. So now, hopefully with this working example, you will be able to see some of the capabilities which are held within Power Automate that can assist your organization. So what I will do is I will drop a message in the chat for a link for this Power Automate case study, because although we have covered it off, we have covered it very high level. I would strongly recommend everybody to, if you are interested in the capabilities that Coca-Cola were able to do, I would strongly recommend you read through this case study because it has a lot of information held within it, and it does have some really good content, as we've covered off with the process. So how Coca-Cola were able to take a very early process, a very early issue, and they were able to convert it from a problem and from a problem that didn't really seem to have an answer to a full-on solution with robotic process automations built in. So bear with me just a second. I will just find the case study. There we go. And I will drop it in the chat for anybody that is interested. So again, we would strongly recommend that you do have a read through that case study. There are far more case studies. We've just cherry picked this one as it was a key player within the Power Automate realm, but there are a lot of case studies held within Microsoft, and we would strongly recommend you start looking into that. There is also a short video for you to watch that is actually quite interesting. It just covers off the more sort of the key information of what we've covered here. But yeah, so a great, really great full-on system with what Coca-Cola have been able to develop. So moving on, we'll now cover off some of what Cobweb uses Power Automate for. So Cobweb also utilizes Power Automate to assist with our manual processing. So although Cobweb does not leverage Power Automate to the scale of Coca-Cola, we do utilize it in various features with our tenant. So mostly we use Power Automate for our notifications. So for an order update through the CRM system, our Power Automate picks up, it sees that that notification has been sent through, or that there has been an update on that CRM job or that CRM order. The Power Automate then picks that CRM or that message up, and it will then forward it directly to the owner of that ticket. So using Power Apps gives you a good opportunity to also leverage Power Automate to send notifications. For an example, Flow. So in the screenshot on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the Flow layout. This screenshot shows a flow for sending notifications from project approvers that a project has been raised and it is awaiting their authorization. This shows the initial trigger of the flow, followed by the steps that the flow will work through. So as you can see, we then created a function which finds the required authorizer and pulls it from the Dataverse database, finds the related customer, and imports this data into the email and sends it to the approver. So you can actually follow these steps as we sort of go down it. So when the project request is made, so what is the change type? It has been added. There has been a new row added into project requests, and the scope is organization. So where should the email go? That function I've covered off just simply because that had a private email of one of our staff. So we've covered that off, but that will literally just look at the user that this has been raised against, and it will find the approver for that. It will then take the owner, so who has submitted it. It will then take the task name. It will then look for the owner, and it will then see get the customer that it relates to, and then it will send this in an email notification. So what this is doing is that it's collating an email to the approver with the person, the name that submitted it, the content of the email, as well as the customer that it raises to. So as you can see on the right hand side, we have also got a couple of other use cases. So we do have a project request raise notification, as you can see. We've also got a purchase order approval request, which will keep the staff up to date of any awaited approvals. So there will also be a 24-hour tick over. So they will keep with the purchase order approvals. We will keep sending those approvers emails every 24 hours to ensure that they are approving their jobs. So it becomes frustrating for them if they're getting spammed with emails, so that they do go through the approvals, or they reject them should they not be allowed, rather than leave internal employees waiting for their answer. We also have a notify of finance form submissions and a dynamic CRM notification. So as I mentioned earlier, there is a notification for all of our CRM orders. So some other examples of Power Automate flows are the purchase order approvers, which also gives a 24-hour notification. Okay, fantastic. So now we will move over to a Q&A section. So if any of you do have any questions that you feel that that could be answered within this session, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I do see that there hasn't been any, but if there are any, feel free to message them now. think we do have a couple from Richard though.
Thank you, Lewis. Yeah, really interested. I think that last slide really showed that it can be quite simple to put together and automate, and you don't have to have like a deep understanding of sort of coding and that sort of thing. It can work for any business and any size business.
Yeah, 100%. Unlike other programs, so unlike other sort of automation processes that can be offered by other companies, Power Automate is built for the non-developer. So it won't be a case of that you will go through and you will need to build an automation flow all in JSON. Although there is a feature that you can look at and peek at the code, so you will be able to see all the JSON code. That isn't a requirement within this project, so it is very much drag and drop. But yeah, do you have any questions, Richard?
Yeah, and obviously this is going to be a very planted question, as I know you've got a slide on it. But obviously, if people did want to take it further, people have two options. So they can come to us and with a problem, and we can say we can solve that problem, and someone like you could then go in and solve the problem for them by creating the automation. There's also obviously the opportunity for people to get the licenses and do it themselves. Where would people train more to understand how to become sort of a Power Automate more development side?
Yeah, so I think we'll do a little bit of a Blue Peter moment. Here's what we prepared earlier. So basically, yeah, we do offer internal training. So there are there's three sort of main sections that I did want to cover off. So we do offer Flow in the Day. So that is a great course that you can come along and learn Power Automate Flow. You will build your own flows within this Flow in a Day course, as well as actually have hands-on experience at the end of the day with using Power Automate. Alternatively, there is RPA in a Day. So if you are interested in that robotic process automation, so if you are interested in a bot going in and completing those areas for those manual automations, so for example, we'll refer back to the CocaCola case study. So they had it where they needed to go into supplier sites and manually import and manually order items on their supplier sites. RPA will take that process out. So rather than you needing to connect via API or you needing to connect specifically into the data, what you can do is that you can get a bot to act as a human and go along and complete all those records. If you're wanting a wider certification, Cobweb also does offer Power Platforms Fundamentals. So that Fundamentals is an actual qualification, so it's the PL 900, and that covers the entire breadth of Power Platforms. So that will cover Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agent as a whole, as well as some Microsoft Dynamics Dataverse. But predominantly, if you're wanting a more drilled down focused training, we would recommend Flow in a Day or RPA in a Day.
Excellent, thank you, Lewis. Michael's asked, is there anything that can't be done? Yes, you can't create apps in it, but luckily you can create apps in Power Apps. So that webinar is on the 10th of May at the same time. So make sure you join us then to see that one. But if there's no other questions, feel free to reach out to sales at cobweb.com, or if you've got an account manager, and we'll make sure we answer those questions for you. Like I said, the recording will be sent out. There's 2 more to go in this series, so we hope to see you there again. Thank you to Lewis very much for that presentation, really interesting. We'll also send out a PDF of the deck as well to you later on. But thank you, guys.
We will actually refer back to, if you don't mind, Richard, we will just sort of cover off Michael's question there. So is there anything that can't be done within Power Automate? So there are certain limitations within Power Automate. Generally, one of the biggest limitations is that there does need to be a connector to be able to connect to that data. So for example, there are ways that we can API, so we can use an API to connect to the data, but Power Automate is much more supported when you have a direct connector. So for example, if you have a third-party system, one of the biggest things that I would recommend is, first off, come and speak to us. And what we will do is that we will investigate to see if that connector is available and see what the best solution is for you for that. But thank you very much for covering that question, Michael. That's a really, really good question to cover. But sorry to jump in there, Richard. Back over to yourself.
No worries, though. Thank you, everybody, for joining the webinar. And we hope to see you on the 10th for the Power Apps and the 17th for the Power BI webinars. Cheers.
Take care, all. Have a lovely day.